Hey there, Wolverine fans. This is the host of the Wolverine Fan Therapy Podcast, Phil Kane, and I wanted to discuss the football team, but before we get into the football team, it's Penn State week. We have to address the elephant in the room, and that is the latest with this sign-stealing allegations, Signgate, which is quickly turning into Spygate, and is a story that could dominate college football for years to come. I just thought that as your therapist, I wanted to, as any good therapist would, really get into the causes and conditions of the reaction to what's been happening, especially from rival fan bases. So it's not going to be able to be done in one or two episodes. We're going to have to do multiple episodes because our primary Big Ten rivals, specifically Michigan State and Ohio State, so much history of pathology that it's going to take multiple episodes. Today, I want to just focus a little bit on Ohio State and understand and try to help Wolverine fans, especially those of us that have been Wolverine fans for a long time, understand the mindset of your typical Ohio State fan, okay? This Ohio State football program is one that has bent or broken the rules in college football for pretty much most of my life. I'm 54 years old, so for 50 years or so, give or take, really back to the 60s, so more than 50 years, they've broken the rules, primarily through paying players. Now, what? How can I make such an allegation? I mean, I have no proof of that, right? Are you kidding me? I mean, we're talking about documented evidence, you know, whether it's Justin Fields, Terrell Pryor, Santonio Holmes, back in the day, Andy Katzenmoyer, the Golden Pants Foundation. We're going to get into a little bit of all of that today. So, from my perspective, having been a fan who attends a lot of games and has regular discourse with fans of other teams, this has been my experience, is that if you really press Ohio State fans, most of them will not deny the reality is that they pay their players and have for decades. If you really get into it, most of the time they either issue just a non-denial denial, or they go to the typical everyone does it, so it's fine. So again, you have to understand, and then maybe more importantly, you have to understand that not only have they done this, and that's their paradigm, that everybody cheats and everyone breaks the rules, so they assume that everyone else is just like them. They assume that Michigan is just as corrupt of a football program as Ohio State. And so you have to start with that. Then you have to go to the fact that they've been caught and put on probation multiple times. Most recently was this it's now known as the Tattoo-Gate scandal.
Yes, appearance. However, in the midst of the celebration, the program's and Tressel's integrity suffered a significant blow.
On the 17th, we contacted the Big Ten and the NCAA offices and informed them that we were preparing a self-report of a secondary level 1 infraction.
5 Buckeye players, including Pryor, were accused of selling team memorabilia for discounts at a local tattoo parlor. The NCAA suspended the players 5 games for the 2011 season, but they were allowed to play in the Sugar Bowl, which OSU went on to win. Tressel denied having any knowledge of the players' actions.
When we came back from the bowl game, we discovered through gathering information on another matter, that there were some emails that Coach Tressel had received that revealed that he had some prior knowledge regarding the matter with our student athletes.
The discovery of the emails led to Tressel being suspended by the school for the first 2 games of the 2011 season. 9 days later, it was announced that Tressel requested and was granted the same 5-game suspension as his players.
I probably, or definitely, didn't move forward with this information to anyone simply because in my mind I couldn't think as to who that best would be.
Tressel's admission of guilt did little to quell the firestorm surrounding the program, as the NCAA sent Ohio State a notice of allegations in April, stating his actions were potential major violations, leading to rampant speculation of Ohio State cutting ties with Tressel as the school faced an August hearing before the NCAA.
Did thought of dismissal ever cross your mind in this case?
No, are you kidding? Let me just be very clear I'm just hopeful the coach just doesn't dismiss me.
Wherever we end up, at the end of the day, Jim Tressel is our football coach. All the speculation about him being terminated is pure speculation, and this case, in my view, does not warrant it.
The sentiments from Ohio State's leadership were not enough in the end to save Tressel's job. He leaves the school with 7 Big Ten titles, 5 BCS bowl wins, and 1 national championship on his resume. But he also leaves with an image tainted through scandal and a decision to withhold information that will ripple through the program for years to come.
That when you get really behind it, we're talking about a federal investigation, an FBI investigation that was into a tattoo parlor where players used to frequent. But that's not why the FBI was involved. You have to stop and ask yourself, well, wait a minute, why is the FBI involved in the first place? Certainly the FBI isn't trying to take down Ohio State football. Absolutely not. No, they weren't. They were involved because the guy that ran this tattoo parlor was also a well-known drug dealer. And they were after him for drug crimes, money laundering, and a whole lot of other things. This guy was somebody that the FBI had targeted and been after. And then through the course of that investigation and wiretaps, it was discovered that a good percentage of the Ohio State football team, including many of their stars, was going to this tattoo parlor and selling memorabilia in exchange for tattoos. What they don't tell you in these articles is there were also likely a lot of other things going on, like drugs and prostitution and probably other things. Okay, these are things that if you go to a tailgate at a football game and talk to fans, they're well known. I mean, these aren't big secrets that somehow I'm revealing today. Oh, the Phil Kane reveal of these secrets. These are pretty much commonly held facts. And that there was money exchanged, okay? In 2008, when Terrell Pryor was being recruited, and it came down to signing day, and he was going to pick between Michigan and Ohio State, and then all of a sudden, he decided he wasn't going to sign with anybody on signing day in February, and nobody knew for weeks what was really going on, and then all of a sudden, just magically, he decided to attend Ohio State and go sign up to Ohio State in April, some 2 months later. I mean, is it crazy for me to think that maybe there was something involved with the recruiting that possibly could have swayed him away from Michigan, away from Penn State, toward Ohio State? I mean, he did have a few cars in his name. I mean, all this stuff starts to add up and pile up. It led to the downfall of Jim Tressel at the Jim Tressel era. Were the punishments fair? I don't know, but the point is, for Wolverine fans, we have to understand that this is the paradigm and the mindset of Ohio State fans and their fan base. So when they hear something about Michigan, and they hear that there's an NCAA investigation, and they hear that Michigan might have stolen signs, this is the world that they live. We're now into their world, okay? This is uncharted territory for us and for the Michigan football program, at least at this level. When there's a national media firestorm and focus now we're into that world. So Ohio State fans are just naturally going to conclude that there must be something much worse than this. This couldn't just stop at Connor Stallions or maybe just a guy that went to some games, whoever knows how many games. It must be something more. There must have been a vast network. So when you hear all these words like, oh, he had a vast network, and they took it to a different level. Yeah, maybe everybody does it, but they took it to a different level. Again, that's the paradigm. Now, of course, as Wolverine fans, and just logically, you can sit there and say, okay, so you're saying that everyone does this. So it's akin to, a lot of people have used this analogy, it's akin to a speeding ticket. Everybody speeds, but if you get caught, hey, you're caught, and you got to pay the ticket. That's the world. But again, this is when with the Ohio State fan base, we're basically, it's like a serial killer calling out somebody who got a speeding ticket. That's literally the analogy that comes to mind for me as a Wolverine fan. You have a program that has knowingly bent or broken the rules, okay? Jim Lachey with the Golden Pants Foundation and the Golden Pants Club for years. If you don't know this as Wolverine fans, again, I'm not making anything up. This is commonly held knowledge. For years, Jim Lachey, who had played offensive line for Ohio State and then was in the NFL, was one of many alums who would pay money to Ohio State players if they beat Michigan, and it was called the Golden Pants Club. This is all, again, go search the internet. Don't believe me. Go on out there and get it online, okay? Agents that broke rank or that were being investigated and reported that, well, I've represented dozens of former college athletes, and I was paying them money while they were in college, and Ohio State was one of the worst offenders, okay? Recruiting battles aside, this has gone on. Most recently, Justin Fields transfers from Georgia to Ohio State. Why did he pick Ohio State? Could there maybe have been some money involved? So you have to ask yourself, and we'll go to former players like Jake Bott. What does he think?
Clearly there's people that don't like Michigan, and they cannot wait to hear more news on this. Then you have Michigan fans that are maybe not fully acknowledging what this means. When the safety's in, or the corner's in press and the safety starts creeping over, that's a corner blitz.
Yep.
Oh, is that illegal? Because I know exactly what the other team is doing? No.
But they share that information. They share the tape.
Let me say one thing here, because this is what's getting me, because it's like competitive balance. And like, listen, we hear things on Twitter that certainly don't look good, and I want to hear more things come out. Competitive balance and circumstantial evidence. I'm not going to name names, and I'm not going to call out any individuals specifically. For the past 2 decades, there's been speculation that some schools across the landscape of college football, and I won't even say any areas, there's been a pay-for-play.
He's talking about the SEC, by the way. He's talking about the schools down south in the SEC.
Pre-NIL, people were getting paid to play. That's circumstantial evidence. We saw cars in the parking lot that looked nicer than the cars in the Denver Broncos parking lot when I played there. I was at the College Football Award Show. I saw Rolexes, custom suits, chains that almost made me go blind, and I'm wearing my dad's hand-me-down suit because I didn't have any money in college. You know what I mean? But that's circumstantial evidence, right? What do you think is more advantageous? To collect all of the best talent in the country on your roster, year over year over year over year, or to have signs that you then have to communicate? When we think about this, please hear me. If you violated a rule, regardless of what you think about the rule, there should be consequences. I will not disagree with that principle. That's coming from a Michigan guy. If you violated a rule, you have to have consequences. But if I have a perfect play call against Ohio State in 2015, Joshua Perry, and we're going to score a touchdown, Joey Bosa comes off the edge and blows it up. That's execution. That's the other piece of this. What frustrates me is I think people are looking at this and saying all of Michigan's success is because of what we're speculating to be true. That's what's getting to me here.
Yeah.
Is there a greater advantage to getting the best players? Like, did Ohio State benefit more from having Justin Fields as their quarterback as opposed to somebody else who wasn't a future NFL quarterback? Or would you benefit more if maybe you have a little bit of advanced scouting and you might know some of the plays of the other team? I mean, come on! I think these things are obvious. But again, to the Ohio State fan base who has dealt with basically constant scandal and perpetual experience that everyone breaks the rules, we're just better at breaking the rules. So again, if you talk to Ohio State fans, they will tell you this. Well, everybody pays players. We're just better at it. This is something that you hear regularly at tailgate parties with Ohio State fans. So again, as Wolverine fans, it's important to understand that mindset. So logically, it's very logical that they would not really think that a full investigation needs to play out or that any kind of due process needs to play out because everybody's guilty. So, Michigan got caught this time. Awesome. That must be the only reason why they beat us the last 2 years. This is the only reason why Jim Harbaugh must have just been behind the most elaborate cheating scandal in the history of college football because, of course, that's the only way you win. That's how Ohio State's always won. That's how they've always been number one in recruiting. That's how they've always had the most talent. So, Michigan just started cheating, and now they got caught. So we got to, hit them hard. Why wait for the investigation? Why wait for due process? Let's go for the jugular and, nail them to the wall. That's what's happening. Okay? So you just have to accept that and know that. You can't reason with these people, just like you can't reason with a serial killer. They're serial offenders of these rules, and just have to, get through this. We know that there's a process is going to play out. We know that there's going to be due process, and we know that very likely Michigan is not going to really face any kind of stiff penalties. That's just the reality of what's going to happen. So we just have to get through this and weather the storm, so to speak. Weather the Twitter mob, the mob rule mentality, weather the storm and get through that.
This team's so good on third down.
It's the players, John. Isn't it obvious? There's 20 guys here that are 22, maybe even 23 that'll be playing on Sunday next year, and there's another 30 or so that are right behind them, 35. 50, 55, almost 60, NFL caliber players right now, and other ones that are developing. It's hard to imagine that people can't see that different comments that demean that, but it's the players. They're really good.